I reached Salem on Christmas Eve without telling anyone I was coming. The cold hit me the moment I stepped out of the taxi, sharp enough to sting my skin through the coat. My boots sank into snow that hadn't been touched all day. The driver pulled away, leaving me alone on the quiet street. The only sound was the wind pushing against the houses like it wanted to get inside. I walked toward my daughter's home with one thought in my mind. I wanted to see Hannah smile. I had spent months traveling for work, and I told myself this surprise would make up for all the holidays I had missed. I pictured her opening the door, eyes bright, voice soft, the way it used to be when she was happy. That hope carried me down the path. I tried calling her as I walked. No answer. I texted her. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. I tucked the phone away and looked at the windows ahead of me. Warm light filled the rooms, spilling onto the snow like a golden trail. For a moment, I let myself believe everything inside was peaceful, that she was simply busy with Christmas dinner. Then I heard laughter. I stepped closer. Through the living room window, I saw a long table covered with food. Red wine, silverware catching the firelight, Richard and Sylvia sitting straight-backed with champagne glasses in hand, Olivia leaning forward, smiling wide. Even Caleb looked relaxed, a rare expression on him. They were laughing, raising their drinks, and leaning toward the fire as if nothing in the world could touch them. I searched for Hannah. I didn't see her by the table. I didn't see her in the kitchen. I didn't see her anywhere inside. A small knot formed in my chest, tight and sharp. I walked past the window, letting the cold guide me toward the porch. Snow creaked under my boots. The wind howled against the house. Something felt wrong. Then I heard it. A faint sound. A small, broken sound. I stopped at the porch steps. My breath froze in my throat. Hannah sat curled up on a wooden chair, arms wrapped around her chest, a thin sweater clinging to her shoulders. Snow dusted her hair. Her fingers were stiff, blue at the tips. Her lips trembled so hard she couldn't hold them still. She looked like she had been sitting there for hours, forgotten by everyone inside. Hannah. Her name left my mouth before I could think. Her head lifted. Her eyes struggled to focus through the cold. Mom. The word cracked, barely a whisper. I rushed to her and pulled her into my arms. Her skin felt like frozen stone. I wrapped my coat around her and tried to warm her with my hands, but she kept shaking. Her breath stuttered against my shoulder. Her legs gave out the moment I tried to lift her, so I held her tight, bracing her weight against my chest. From inside, the laughter rose again, another round of glasses clinking, a cheer. I heard Caleb's voice muffled through the glass. She's just looking for attention. Let her sit there. Their warmth filled the house while my daughter froze less than 10 steps away. My jaw tightened. I knew exactly who these people were. They would deny everything tomorrow. They would call her crazy. They would erase this night. I shifted Hannah's weight against my chest, reached into my coat pocket with a trembling hand, and pulled out my phone. I swiped the screen and hit the red button. Record. I slipped the phone into my breast pocket, microphone facing out. I needed proof. I've got you, I whispered to her. You're safe now. I shifted her in my arms and turned toward the door. Snow slid off her clothes onto my sleeves. The porch light flickered above us, casting a thin shadow over her face. I kicked the bottom of the door once, but no one came. I kicked harder. Still nothing. I pushed the door open myself, feeling the warm air hit my face like a slap. The room fell silent. Sylvia stood closest. Her smile spread slow, too soft to be real. Helen, what a surprise! Caleb leaned back in his chair, annoyance flashing across his face. Richard frowned, already irritated. Olivia pressed her lips together, eyes wide with judgment, not concern. I moved past all of them and laid Hannah on the sofa near the fire. The warmth reached her, but she kept shaking. Her breath still shallow. No one moved to help. No one even stood up. Caleb finally spoke. She needed air. Air, I said, keeping my voice steady. Outside, in 30-degree weather, alone. Sylvia lifted her glass. She stepped out on her own. We thought she wanted space. I looked at her. Space doesn't turn someone's skin blue. Richard exhaled through his nose. bored. "It's Christmas. Don't start drama in this house." I stood between the sofa and the fireplace, blocking their view of my daughter. The heat from the flames warmed my back, while the cold from the porch still clung to my clothes. The contrast made my heart pound. They watched me as if I were the problem. As if bringing my daughter in from the cold was rude. As if the truth was an inconvenience. I let the silence fill the room until every eye landed on me. "I'm glad you're all here tonight," I said. The tone surprised them. I saw it in the way Caleb's eyebrows twitched, in the way Sylvia's smile faded, in the way Richard straightened his spine, and Olivia sat still, waiting for the next line. I wasn't angry, not yet, but they understood something had shifted. I placed my hand on the sofa beside Hannah and looked at them one by one. "We're going to talk. I should tell you how the day started, because the signs were there long before I reached that porch. I landed in Salem early, the kind of early where the sun hadn't decided if it wanted to rise. The airport lights glowed pale across wet floors as people hurried past with wrapped gifts and luggage stacked high. I waited by the baggage carousel with a knot in my chest I tried to ignore. My plan was simple: arrive without warning. Knock on Hannah's door. Watch her smile the way she used to when she was little. I had done it before, years ago, when she lived alone, and the surprise made her laugh until she lost her breath. I wanted that again. I wanted to remind her she still had someone who would show up for her, no matter what. I texted her before boarding. No reply. I sent another when the plane landed. Still nothing. I called once, then twice, hearing the steady ring echo through my headset, while families around me reunited with warm hugs. I told myself she was busy cooking or decorating. She always loved Christmas lights. Outside the terminal, a line of taxis waited under flickering lamps. I stepped into the first one, dragging my bag onto the seat. The driver nodded at me through the mirror. "Cold morning." "Colder than usual," I answered. Snow drifted sideways across the highway as we pulled onto the main road. Streetlights blurred through the frost on the window. My phone stayed silent in my palm. I checked it again anyway. "You from around here?" the driver asked. I nodded. "Just visiting my daughter," he hummed. "Holidays bring people home." I looked out the window again, watching the city slip by in shades of gray and white. The further we drove, the quieter it became. Houses sat still behind fences dusted in snow. Strings of lights glowed from porches like small promises of warmth. I wanted to believe one of those warm places was Hannah's home. Then the driver slowed as we passed a police car stopped near a traffic circle. An officer stood beside it, directing cars around a stalled truck. His breath fogged in the air each time he gave a signal. As we approached, he turned his head, eyes scanning the passing vehicles out of habit. It took me a moment to recognize him. "Stop here," I told the driver. I rolled down the window. "James?" He froze. His eyes widened with recognition. "Ms. Harper?" His voice carried a mix of surprise and concern. He stepped closer to the car, lowering his hand from the air. Snowflakes clung to the brim of his hat. "I thought you were still teaching in Portland," he said. "I was," I answered. "Came back for Hannah." His expression shifted, subtle but sharp. A flicker of something he didn't say fast enough. His jaw tightened, and he glanced away for a second like he was searching for the right words. "You're heading to her place now?" he asked. "Yes," I said slowly. "Why?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Just be careful on that street. Roads are icy." It wasn't the roads he was worried about. I saw it clearly in his eyes before the driver pulled forward. He wanted to say more but didn't, not in uniform, not in the cold, not in front of someone who didn't know the situation. The dread settled in quietly. A thin layer at first, enough for me to feel it, but not enough to understand it. The driver took the last turn toward the neighborhood. Houses lined the street with trimmed hedges and porch lights glowing against the snow. I leaned forward as Hannah's house came into view, noticing how untouched the yard looked. No footprints, no signs of anyone stepping outside all day. My phone buzzed. My heart jumped, but it was just an automated holiday alert. Yet the unease in my chest wouldn't settle. James's hesitation at the traffic circle played over in my mind. I pulled up his contact, saved years ago when he helped Hannah with a flat tire. I didn't want to be dramatic, but my gut screamed that something was wrong. I hit share my location and typed 2 words. Please check. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped he would text back asking why I was worrying over nothing. But I slipped the phone back into my pocket, needing that safety line. The taxi stopped at the curb. Warm light glowed behind the living room curtains. Music played just loud enough for me to hear through the window, cheerful, steady, unfitting for the cold sinking into my bones. I didn't know yet what waited for me on that porch. I didn't know Hannah was sitting in the freezing air, barely able to speak. I didn't know a house full of people were laughing by the fire while my daughter shivered outside like she didn't belong to them. But I felt the unease rise again, the one that started at the airport and sharpened when James hesitated. Something wasn't right. I stepped out of the taxi, tightened the strap on my bag, and started walking toward the house. Snow crunched under my feet. The wind picked up again. And in the back of my mind, James's voice echoed, "Be careful, Miss Harper." I didn't know why he said it then, but I would soon. The moment my knuckles hit the wood, Hannah slipped in my arms. Her head dropped against my shoulder, breath uneven, body trembling like the cold had eaten straight through her bones. I shifted my grip, steadying her weight. "Stay with me," I whispered. Inside, the music kept looping. Jingle bells. Too loud, too bright, too wrong. The door cracked open. A slice of warm light spilled across the porch. Sylvia appeared first. Perfect hair, perfect posture, wine glass in hand. Her smile froze when she saw Hannah limp in my arms. "Helen, what are you doing here tonight?" Her voice tried to sound welcoming, but the edges curled with annoyance. I stepped forward. "Move." She hesitated. Her eyes flicked from my face to Hannah's. Nothing softened. She chose to sit outside. She needed space. Space doesn't drop someone's temperature to 32 degrees. Sylvia's lips tightened. She lifted her chin. "Don't start drama. It's Christmas." I pushed past her before she finished. The warmth inside wrapped around us, but it didn't touch me. I headed straight to the sofa and lowered Hannah gently onto the cushions. Her fingers twitched. Her lips quivered. Her eyes barely opened. "Mom," she breathed. "I'm here." I grabbed the throw blanket from the back of the sofa and wrapped it around her. The fabric felt warm, but her skin stayed ice cold beneath my hands. Footsteps closed in behind me. Caleb stood near the dining table, wine bottle in hand, jaw clenched. I told her to stay outside until she calmed down. I turned to him. "She's freezing." He shrugged. She was being dramatic. Hannah's weak voice trembled. I just needed air." Caleb shot her a glare. "You wanted attention. That's what this is." Her shoulders curled inward. My hand settled on her back, firm, steady. "You don't talk to her that way." Richard rose slowly from his seat, authority in every movement. "Helen, you're overreacting. She has a habit of exaggeration." I looked straight at him. "Her body is cold to the touch." Olivia leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed. "It's not our fault she can't handle a small argument." Argument. I brushed Hannah's damp hair from her forehead. Her skin burned with cold. I glanced at the fireplace. Flames danced high, steady. Feet away, my daughter shivered like she was outside in the storm. "Where's her coat?" I asked. No one answered. I tried again. "Where is her coat?" Caleb rolled his eyes. "She misplaced it. She misplaces everything." Hannah whispered. "He took it. He locked the door." The room froze. Olivia scoffed. "Don't twist the story. She needed space." I turned back to Hannah. "Is that true?" Her eyes flicked up to mine. Red, defeated. "He told me to think about how grateful I should be." My jaw tightened. I stood straight. "Caleb." His chin lifted. "What?" "You left her outside without a coat." "It was her choice." Hannah's fingers gripped mine, weak but desperate. "I knocked. They ignored me." Sylvia waved a hand. "She knocks at the wrong times." I felt something cold settle inside me. colder than the air outside, colder than the snow clinging to the hem of my pants. I turned toward the Grant family, each face lit by firelight, not one showing concern. "You sat inside eating while she froze on your porch." Richard's voice deepened. "Watch your tone." I stepped closer. "You watched her suffer." Caleb exhaled sharply. "She wasn't suffering. She was trying to guilt-trip us. Again." Hannah's breath hitched. "I'm not—" "Quiet," Caleb snapped. I stepped between them in one motion. "Don't raise your voice at her." He scoffed. "She raises her voice at me all the time." Hannah's whisper broke. "I never—" "Enough," he cut in. I faced him fully. "You locked her out." He shrugged again. "She needed discipline." My fingers curled. "She's your wife, not your student." Richard's hand thumped the table. "She's a woman in our family, and in this family, women learn to endure." Hannah collapsed inward. The words hit her harder than the cold. I stood taller, stronger. "Endure what? Insults? Neglect? Freezing temperatures?" Sylvia stepped forward. "Helen, you're blowing this out of proportion." Her body temperature is dropping. "Oh, please," Olivia smirked. "She'll be fine. She always makes things bigger than they are." I checked Hannah's pulse. Weak. Too weak. I leaned close to her ear. "I'm getting you out of here." Tears slipped down her cheek. "Please." I turned to Caleb. "You're not stopping me." He smirked. "This is my house. This is my daughter." He lifted his hands like I was the unreasonable one. "She'll come back once she thinks clearly." I lifted Hannah again, her weight sinking into my arms. Sylvia gasped as her wine glass tilted. Olivia stepped aside, still smirking. Richard's voice boomed. "If you leave tonight, don't expect this family to welcome you back." I looked him dead in the eye. "You never welcomed her in the first place." Silence cracked across the room. I marched toward the door. Hannah's breath trembled against my neck. Snow spilled through the doorway as I stepped back onto the porch. Behind me, Caleb's voice rose. "You're making a mistake." I didn't turn. "No, I'm correcting one." The door slammed shut behind us, sealing in the firelight and cruelty. The cold air hit my face again, but this time it felt honest. I adjusted my grip on Hannah and stepped off the porch, leaving footprints deep in the snow. No one opened the door immediately. No one ran after us to apologize. Hannah buried her face into my shoulder and whispered one word with all the strength she had. "Home." "I'm taking you home," I promised, walking faster away from the house that had nearly become her frozen tomb. I reached the curb, my breath visible in the icy air. That's when I saw the flashing lights waiting for me. Snow swirled around us as I carried Hannah across the yard. Her head rested weakly against my shoulder, her breath faint but steady. I reached the curb, tightened my grip, and looked for the nearest light. That's when I caught movement beside the mailbox. James Cole stepped out of the shadows. Police uniform, patrol jacket, snow on his shoulders. His eyes locked onto Hannah first, then onto me. "Ms. Harper," he greeted sharply, voice low. "I got your location ping." I steadied Hannah in my arms. "She needs help." James stepped closer, assessing her pale face. His jaw tightened. "How long was she out there?" "Long enough to shake." He exhaled through his nose, a controlled release. "You did the right thing getting her out." "I'm not done." James nodded once. "You want to file the report?" "Yes." A gust of wind hit Hannah's legs. She shivered violently. James opened the back door of his patrol SUV. "Put her inside. Heaters on full." I gently settled Hannah onto the seat. She curled inward instantly, chasing the warmth. I adjusted the blanket and brushed her damp hair from her cheek. Her voice broke out in a fragile whisper. "Mom, please don't leave me." "I'm right here." James closed the door gently, then faced me. "What happened inside?" The question wasn't curiosity, it was documentation. I kept my tone even. "They locked her outside, took her coat, called her fragile, told her to endure." His jaw clenched harder. "Anyone lay hands on her?" "Not tonight." I lowered my voice. But the emotional damage is enough to break someone. He nodded slowly. That qualifies. Then file it. James tapped his radio for signal. Dispatch, I'm logging a domestic welfare check at the Grant residence. Possible neglect and psychological endangerment. Static crackled back. He stepped aside, lowering his voice. This family has connections. They might push back. I expect them to. And you still want to pursue charges? Yes. He studied my expression for a beat. His eyes softened. Respect, not pity. Then I'll file the preliminary complaint. Before he could continue, the Grant house door swung open. Light burst across the snow. Caleb stormed out first, coat half-buttoned, face flushed with anger. Richard followed, heavier steps in the snow. Sylvia and Olivia hovered behind them on the porch, arms crossed, watching. Caleb pointed at me from halfway down the steps. You can't involve the police. I turned my body slightly toward him, but kept calm. I can. You're blowing this up. You left her in freezing temperatures. She chose to sit there. Stop calling abuse a choice. Caleb threw his hands out. She exaggerates everything. Hannah's voice cracked through the SUV window. Caleb, please stop. He ignored her. You're manipulating her, Helen. You're always doing this. I tightened my jaw. I didn't leave her in the cold. Richard stepped forward, voice firm. Ms. Harper, you're interfering in private family matters. James stepped between us instantly. Sir, you don't get to control the narrative during a welfare check. Richard glared. Officer, I know the department. I know your captain. I know... James cut him off. Doesn't change my job. Caleb tried to circle around James to reach the SUV. James lifted a hand. Don't come any closer. Caleb barked back. She's my wife. Then act like it. Sylvia scoffed from the porch. Officer, she's always dramatic. This is ridiculous. James didn't even turn toward her. Your daughter-in-law was found outside in freezing temperatures without a coat. That's not drama. Olivia stepped closer to Richard, whispering loudly, He's taking her side. He's taking the law's side, I responded. Caleb's face reddened deeper. You're ruining this family, Helen. You're tearing everything apart. Your choices tore it first, I countered. He jabbed a finger toward me. You're making her weak. She's freezing. That's not weakness. That's negligence. James snapped open his notebook. Ms. Harper, I need a clear statement on what you witnessed. Richard barked, You're not recording anything without our permission. James ignored him. Ms. Harper? I gave it plainly. I found my daughter unconscious on their porch. No coat, no food, no attempt from inside to bring her in. Verbal insults overheard through the window before that. Mockery. Blame. Dismissal of her health. Caleb walked right up to us again, ignoring James's warning. She's lying. I didn't flinch. Hannah? Her shaky voice drifted through the cracked SUV window. I knocked. Nobody opened. I told them I was cold. They laughed. James wrote faster. Caleb lunged toward her voice. You don't know what you're saying! James shoved an arm out again, blocking him harder. Sir, step back! Caleb pushed against James's forearm. Snow scattered under their boots. James's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Do not touch me. Richard grabbed Caleb's shoulder. Stop! But Caleb yanked free. No, she's ruining everything. I stepped between him and the car. This ends tonight. He barked at me, inches away. You can't call this abuse! I held his stare. My voice didn't shake. This is domestic abuse. The wind stopped. The house behind us fell silent. Even jingle bells cut off like someone pulled the plug. Sylvia's grip on her wine glass faltered. Olivia froze mid-breath. Richard's face twitched, the first crack in his composure. Caleb scoffed. You don't get to call it that. I just did. James lowered his notebook. It's on record. Caleb swung toward him. Erase it. James didn't blink. No. Richard stepped down one stair. Officer, think carefully. Already did. Sylvia snapped. You people don't understand our family. I pointed at the door. Your family left a woman outside to freeze. Caleb glared at me with full rage. "She's not going anywhere. She's already gone." I opened the SUV door, slid into the seat beside Hannah, and pulled the belt over her shivering frame. James walked around to the driver's door. "Ms. Harper, I'll escort you back to your place. We'll file the paperwork at the station." Caleb shouted behind us, "You'll regret this!" I met his fury with pure calm. Not one part of me will. James shut the door, blocking out the Grant family's voices. The heater hummed. Hannah leaned into me, breath trembling. I wrapped my arm around her. "You're safe." As James pulled away from the curb, snow swallowed the Grant house behind us. Their lights blurred into the storm, tiny and distant. The fight wasn't over, but the silence in the car felt like the first breath of truth. James drove slowly through the snow-packed street, wipers pushing away flakes that hit the windshield like tiny needles. The heater filled the SUV with steady warmth, pulling some color back into Hannah's face. She leaned against me, eyes half closed, breath shallow but steady. I brushed her hair off her forehead. "You're safe now." Her hand tightened around my coat. "Don't take me back there." "I won't." James checked the rearview mirror. "They're still outside, watching us leave." I didn't look back. Let them watch. He slowed at the stop sign, turning the SUV toward the main road leading away from the Grant property. His voice dropped lower. "I've seen domestic cases before, but tonight—" His jaw tightened. "This one hits different." "It hit her every day." He nodded once. "I'll file the report before shift change. The station will log it as emotional endangerment." "Good." Hannah curled tighter into my side. "Mom, they'll come after us." "They won't reach you," I whispered. "Not while I'm breathing." James glanced at her through the mirror. "You won't go through this alone, Hannah. You have support now." A faint, broken, "Thank you," slipped from her lips. He kept driving in silence after that. Quiet, purposeful, steady. 10 minutes later, he turned toward my apartment complex. Snow covered the parking lot in uneven piles. He parked near the stairwell, lights still on, engine running. "Let me help you carry her." "I've got her." I lifted Hannah again. She felt lighter than before, but her arms wrapped around my neck with a grip born of fear, not strength. The wind hit us instantly when I stepped out. Bitter, sharp, honest. James walked beside me. "I'll do a full written account tonight. You want to start yours now?" "In a minute." "Take your time. We're not rushing this." We reached the second-floor landing. I unlocked the apartment, nudged the door open with my shoulder, and carried Hannah inside. Warm air from the heater greeted us. The faint smell of apple tea still lingered from earlier. I brought Hannah to the couch and lowered her onto the cushions. She clung to me, even as I tried to pull away. "It's okay," I whispered. I'm right here." Her eyes glistened. I thought no one heard me." "I heard you." She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook, but no sound came out, just silent tremors of someone who'd held everything in for too long. James stepped into the doorway. "I'll wait outside while you settle her." I shook my head. "Stay." He leaned against the wall, giving us space. I grabbed an extra blanket from the closet and draped it over Hannah. "Drink something warm." I handed her the mug I'd reheated. She tried to hold it, but her hands shook too hard. I steadied them. "Small sips." She nodded. James checked his phone. "Dispatch logged the welfare check. The Grants will get a follow-up call." "They'll deny everything," I responded. "I know." His voice was flat, controlled. "But they won't deny it forever." He stepped closer. "Helen, tonight was bad, but I'll be honest, it won't get easier fast. Richard Grant's reputation carries weight. People listen to him even when they shouldn't. I'm not scared of him. I know, but the system might be slow. Slow or not, we'll move." James nodded once. "I'll help you build the file." Hannah looked up weakly. "What if they twist it again? What if they turn everyone against me?" "They won't," James replied. His voice dropped into something steadier, stronger. "Because I was there." Her eyes softened. "You heard all of it?" Every word. She swallowed. You'll tell the truth? I will. I met his eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep going. He looked at Hannah. And keep breathing. She let out a small breath, fragile but real. James tapped the edge of his notebook. The more details we have, the stronger the case becomes. We'll gather texts, receipts, doctor notes, everything. I'll prepare it, I answered. I know you will. Hannah sipped more tea, her hands steadier now. Mom, he'll be angry. He already is, I responded calmly. But he won't touch you. She blinked hard. A single tear rolled down her cheek. I'm scared. You don't have to be. James stepped closer. Helen's right. Caleb can shout. His family can posture. But they don't own the law. Something flickered in Hannah's expression. Fear, hope, disbelief, all tangled together. A knock interrupted the moment. Soft, hesitant. James's head snapped toward the door. His hand rested on his radio. Stay behind me. I moved Hannah slightly, shielding her. James opened the door a crack. A neighbor stood outside, Mrs. Walsh from downstairs. Her coat dusted with snow, her eyes wide, her voice hushed. I heard yelling earlier. Is everything all right? James answered. Everything under control. She peered around him. Her eyes landed on Hannah. Relief softened her expression. Honey, I'm right downstairs if you need anything. Hannah managed a faint nod. Mrs. Walsh placed a small tin on the floor. Cookies, fresh, just in case. She gave a warm, quick smile, then hurried back down the hall. James closed the door. People care more than you think. Hannah stared at the tin like it was something she didn't know how to deserve. I touched her shoulder. You're not alone. She leaned into me, exhausted. Mom, don't let me go back. You're not going back. James stepped toward the door. I'll file the full report now. When I return tomorrow, we start building the case. I nodded. We'll be ready. He glanced at Hannah one last time. You did nothing wrong. Her lips parted, trembling. Still feels like I did. You didn't, I repeated. They did. James locked eyes with me. Get some rest. Tomorrow starts the real fight. Then he stepped out into the hallway, cold air brushing in before the door clicked shut behind him. Hannah collapsed against me again, her breath warm, her voice barely there. Mom, thank you. I tightened my hold around her. You survived them, I whispered, steady and calm. Now we face them. Outside, snow kept falling. Quiet, steady, covering the tracks we left behind, but not the truth we carried with us. Morning light crept through the blinds, weak and pale. I sat at the kitchen table, a stack of receipts in front of me. My pen hovered over a yellow notepad, listing dates, transfers, and every moment I had stepped in when Caleb didn't. Hannah moved slowly from the bedroom, wrapped in the blanket I left for her. Her steps dragged. Her eyes looked hollow. I stood. Sit. She lowered herself onto the couch. You warm enough? I asked. She nodded faintly. I'm trying. You will. A soft knock hit the door. 2 slow taps, then one firm. I opened it. James stood in the hall with a folder tucked under his arm, the morning chill clinging to him. I filed the preliminary report. You're officially listed as the reporting party. Good. He stepped inside, scanning the apartment. How is she? Hannah lifted her gaze. Tired. James walked toward her, slow and careful. You don't have to talk right now. Just breathe. She pulled the blanket tighter. They're going to come after me. They already tried, I replied, and they failed. James nodded. The Grant family called the station 5 times this morning, each one trying to twist the narrative. I expected that. They're claiming you staged everything, he continued, that Hannah walked out on purpose, that you're exaggerating. Hannah's shoulders sank. Of course they are. I faced her directly. Their lies don't outweigh evidence. James opened the folder. Here's what we need next. Documentation. Every record, every text, every transfer. I returned to the table. I've been listing everything since dawn. He stepped beside me, scanning the spread of receipts. This is a strong start. Hannah's voice drifted from the couch. Mom kept all of those? Yes, I answered, because I knew one day they'd try to erase what I did for you. James added, and they can't erase paper. I handed him a stack. Bank statements, transfers from the past 4 years. He glanced through them quickly. Consistent, traceable, shows support. I placed another stack down. Medical expenses I covered when Caleb refused to take her. Hannah closed her eyes. He told me I was wasting money. He was wrong, I replied. James took notes. Any messages from Caleb? Anything showing blame or neglect? Hannah looked toward her phone on the coffee table but hesitated. They're awful. Good, I answered. Awful helps. James approached slowly. You don't have to read them now. Just unlock the phone. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. She handed it over. James scrolled carefully. His expression hardened. This is exactly what we need. What's in there? I asked. He turned the screen. Dozens of texts. Dismissive, controlling, blaming her for every miscarriage. Hannah's eyes filled. He always told me I wasn't trying hard enough. My voice stayed steady. That's abuse. James kept moving through the messages. And this proves a pattern. A sudden envelope slid under the door, scraping across the floor. James reacted first, reaching it before I did. He crouched and picked it up, jaw tightening as he examined the front. No return address. Open it, I urged. He tore the seal carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, just 5 words, scribbled in rushed handwriting. Drop it or suffer more. James lifted his gaze. This is a threat. Hannah covered her mouth with her hands. They know where we are. They always knew, I answered, but this proves intent. James slipped the note into an evidence sleeve. This will go straight into the case file. I continued gathering documents. I want every piece logged. We will, he assured. Then he turned to Hannah. You'll also need a medical assessment from someone unbiased. I nodded. I already scheduled an appointment with Dr. Carter. Hannah whispered. She helped me before. And she'll help again, I replied. James checked his watch. We should leave soon. Medical evaluation is critical. Hannah hesitated. Will she write everything down? That's the point, he responded. A professional record of depression, trauma, physical effects of cold exposure. She swallowed hard. Will the court believe her? James exchanged a look with me. Courts can be slow, but they can't ignore a doctor forever. She nodded weakly. I gathered the remaining paperwork. I'll bring this to Attorney Pierce later today. James raised a brow. Mark Pierce? The one who taught legal ethics at the academy? He's an old friend, I replied, and he owes me a favor. That's a good ally, James muttered. He knows how to dismantle a smug family. I slipped the documents into a folder. Exactly why I'm calling him, Hannah whispered from the couch. Are we going to court again? Yes, I answered plainly. But this time, we're building the case right. She wiped a tear from her cheek with a trembling hand. I don't want to face them. You won't be alone, I replied. James stood tall. And they won't be the ones controlling the room this time. I guided Hannah toward the coat rack. You ready to see Dr. Carter? She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. I'm scared. I know. I lifted her chin gently. But fear doesn't stop truth. James opened the door. Cold air swept in. Let's go. As we stepped into the hallway, he walked slightly ahead, protective without being overbearing. Hannah moved beside me, slow but determined, gripping the sleeve of my coat. Outside, the snow had settled into a quiet blanket across the parking lot. No cars, no Grant family, just cold air and an open path forward. Hannah leaned close. Do you think this will work? It will, I replied. James added, and if it doesn't, we'll build again. She breathed out shakily. I just want peace. You'll get it, I whispered. We reached the patrol SUV. James opened the back door. Hannah climbed inside carefully, her blanket still around her shoulders. I joined her. James settled in the driver's seat. Next stop, Dr. Carter. As he pulled out of the lot, snow trailed behind us in a soft swirl. Quiet, steady, focused. The case was beginning, and we were finally moving toward truth, not away from it. 3 weeks later, the Boise courthouse smelled like old paper and cold air. Polished floors, high ceilings, too bright, too quiet. I walked in with Hannah at my side, her fingers locked around my wrist like she feared the building might swallow her whole. "You're okay," I whispered. She nodded, but her breath shook. James was already inside near the gallery seats. He stood when he saw us. "The judge is known for strict procedure. Stay steady." "I'm steady," I replied. He looked at Hannah. "You sit next to your mom. I'll be right behind you." We entered courtroom 3. The Grant family was already planted in the front row like royalty. Richard sat upright, coat pressed. Sylvia held her purse tight against her lap, chin lifted. Olivia smirked at her phone. Caleb leaned back in his chair, legs crossed, the confidence of a man who expected a trophy, not a verdict. His eyes flicked to us, full of triumph. Hannah shrank beside me. I straightened. "Look forward," I murmured. She nodded weakly. Our attorney, Mark Pierce, entered seconds later. Gray hair, calm expression, thick folders under one arm. He approached us with a firm stride. "I've reviewed everything. It's strong. But the Grants have heavy influence. Keep your composure." "I always do." He gave a small nod. "Then we fight." The bailiff opened the side door. "All rise." Every person stood as the judge walked in. Middle-aged, rigid posture, eyes that scanned the room without warmth. He took his seat. "Court is now in session. Begin." Mark rose. "Your Honor, this is a petition to recognize a pattern of emotional endangerment inflicted on Hannah Harper Grant by her husband's family. We intend to prove neglect, manipulation, and mental cruelty." Caleb's lawyer, a young man in a sleek charcoal suit, stood. "Your Honor, we intend to dismantle these fabricated claims." The judge motioned. "Proceed," Mark began. "We will start with evidence of financial dependency created by the defendant." He held up printed bank statements. "These show irregular transfers from Ms. Harper over 4 years, supporting her daughter when the Grant household refused to." Caleb's lawyer cut in. "Objection. Financial help from a parent is not evidence of mistreatment." Mark didn't waver. "It is when the spouse withheld funds intentionally." The judge allowed him to continue. Hannah's breathing quickened. I squeezed her hand. Mark moved on. "Next, medical reports from Dr. Laura Carter detail severe depression and trauma-related symptoms." The courtroom stirred. Whispers. Murmurs. Caleb's lawyer rose sharply. "Your Honor, the witness is biased. The therapist is a friend." Mark countered instantly. "She's a licensed professional whose evaluation is legally valid." The judge nodded slowly. "Continue." I allowed myself one breath of hope, until Caleb's lawyer stepped to the center. He held a folder. "Your Honor, we present testimony proving the plaintiff's instability." Martha, the Grants' former housekeeper, stepped forward. My jaw tightened. She looked smaller than I remembered, nervous, eyes darting. She took the stand. Caleb's lawyer approached. "State your role." "I was their housekeeper." "Did you observe the plaintiff's behavior?" She swallowed. "Yes." "And?" "She stayed in her room all day, ignored chores, ignored family meals, refused to participate." Hannah's head dropped instantly. "That's not true," she whispered. I gripped her hand. "Stay calm." Mark rose. "Miss Martha, were you ever instructed by the Grant family to report concerns about Hannah?" She hesitated. They mentioned it a few times." "Mentioned," Mark repeated. "Or directed?" I don't know." Caleb's lawyer snapped. "The witness answered." He didn't use the banned word said. "We're safe." The judge moved things forward. "The court accepts the witness testimony." A stone dropped in my chest. Mark continued pushing. "Let's play the recorded audio captured on Christmas Eve." Hannah's fingers clenched around mine. James straightened behind us. Mark nodded to the clerk. The speakers clicked on. Caleb's voice burst through the room, cold, sharp, seething. "She's faking depression to dodge her duties." Olivia's voice followed. "A woman who can't have kids is useless." Then Olivia's. "She can't even manage to give birth." Every whisper in the courtroom died. Hannah covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Mark stood tall. "This is the environment she endured." Caleb's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, this recording was made without consent." Mark countered. "The content exposes abuse. The recording violates privacy laws." Caleb's lawyer interrupted. The judge lifted a hand. "Quiet." Everyone froze. He looked at the clerk. "Is the recording legally obtained?" "No, Your Honor." The judge turned to Mark. "The audio is inadmissible." I felt the ground sway. Mark stepped forward. "Your Honor, move on," the judge ordered. Caleb's smug smile returned instantly. Richard sat back like he'd won a chess match he didn't even need to focus on. Hannah shook uncontrollably. "Mom, they're winning." "No," I whispered. "They're lying, not winning." Mark tried again. "Your Honor, we request to include." Denied. He tried to reintroduce the medical evidence. Denied. He attempted to show the threat letter. Denied. One by one, our pieces were cut down before they even hit the floor. A trap. A courtroom designed to appear fair, but move in one direction only. My pulse stayed steady. My mind stayed cold. James leaned forward from behind. "Helen, breathe." "I'm breathing." Caleb's lawyer circled the room like he owned it. "Your Honor, the plaintiff has a long history of exaggeration. Depression claims, lost pregnancies, all convenient excuses." Hannah choked on a breath. I leaned into her ear. "Focus on me, not them." She nodded, barely. The lawyer kept pressing. "We request the court dismiss any claims of emotional abuse." The judge leaned back. "The court will deliberate." He struck his gavel lightly. The sound dragged across the room like a warning. The decision wasn't made yet, but the direction was clear. James whispered behind me, "This judge leans toward the grants." "I know." "What are you going to do?" "Everything." Caleb stood, straightened his tie, and flashed a victorious grin. "Told you you'd lose." I didn't flinch. "Not yet." He chuckled under his breath. "You're outmatched." "Not for long." His eyes narrowed. "You think you're smarter?" "No." I met his gaze steadily. "I know I am." His grin faded. "Good." The bailiff announced a recess. People stood, chatter filling the air again. Hannah leaned into me, trembling. "Mom, I can't do this." "You already did." "But they don't believe me." "Not here," I replied. "But the world will." She swallowed hard. "I'm scared." "You're allowed to be scared, but you are not allowed to give up." James stepped beside us. "They're relying on intimidation and connections." "I'm relying on truth," I answered. "And I'm backing both of you," he added. Hannah exhaled shakily. "I just want peace." "You'll have it," I promised. "But first, we finish this fight." The overhead lights buzzed. The judge's chamber's door closed. The Grants whispered among themselves with smug confidence. Let them. My daughter wasn't alone anymore, and I wasn't done, not even close. When the judge returned, the room froze. Doors shut. Murmurs died instantly. Hannah's hand tightened around mine until her knuckles lost color. The judge adjusted his glasses. "This court has reviewed all testimony and evidence presented." I kept my eyes fixed on him, every nerve locked in place. Mark stood tall beside our table, calm, composed, ready for another blow. The judge continued. "The court acknowledges the marriage breakdown between Hannah Harper Grant and Caleb Grant. Divorce will be granted." Hannah's breath hitched. "But," the judge added, "the court does not find sufficient legal grounds to classify the situation as emotional endangerment or abuse." The words hit the room like a blow to the chest. My pulse didn't rise, but something inside me tightened like a wire pulled to breaking point. Hannah stared at the table, completely still, completely broken. The judge moved on, unmoved. Marital assets will remain with Mr. Caleb Grant. Ms. Harper Grant will receive a minimal settlement based on income history. Sylvia allowed a tiny, triumphant nod. Olivia smirked openly. Richard adjusted his cufflinks, satisfied. Caleb leaned back, stretching his legs, victory dripping from his posture. The judge lifted the gavel. This is the ruling of the court. Before he could strike it, I rose. This isn't justice. The gavel hit the block at the exact same second. A sharp crack. Final. The bailiff moved toward me. Ma'am, I'm speaking, I cut in, voice low, controlled. My daughter was left in freezing temperatures, mocked, manipulated, threatened, and this court refuses to acknowledge any of it. The judge's stare turned icy. Ms. Harper, sit down or be removed. I didn't move. You're ignoring evidence because of who this family is. Mark touched my arm gently. Helen. I didn't sit. The judge pointed toward the bailiff. Escort her back to her seat. The bailiff approached, firm hand guiding me down, but I kept my eyes on the judge the entire time, not blinking, not bending. Caleb leaned forward, voice low enough for only us to hear. You were always useless. James shot to his feet behind us. Watch your mouth! The judge glared at him. Officer, maintain order. James forced himself still, but rage simmered beneath the surface. Hannah finally lifted her face. Tears streaked down her skin, but her voice wavered only slightly. I just want peace. Caleb rolled his eyes. You always want something. Hannah flinched. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not in chaos, but in precision. I turned toward him. You don't get to talk to her again. He smirked. Who's stopping me? James stepped closer. I will. Cameras flashed from the back of the courtroom. Cell phones lifted. Journalists leaned forward. Someone whispered, That's the Grant family case. Caleb noticed the phones and straightened quickly, smoothing his tie. Put those down, he barked at the crowd. No one lowered their cameras. Mark cleared his throat, attempting one last push. Your Honor, we request reconsideration. Denied, the judge responded instantly. Then we request therapy evaluation review. Denied. Then we request visitation protection. Denied. Every rejection was instantaneous, mechanical. A courtroom that had ears for only one name, Grant. Caleb stood, brushing off invisible dust from his suit. Let's go. We're done here. Richard rose as well. Justice is served. Sylvia clutched her purse with a satisfied smile. Finally, something fair. Olivia strutted behind them, lifting her phone and whispering loudly enough for half the room to hear. Can't wait to post this. Hannah broke. Her face collapsed into her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, the kind a person holds in for years. Not loud, not dramatic, just raw pain. James moved instantly toward her. You're okay. I'm here. She leaned into him, clinging to his sleeve like it was the only stable thing left in the world. Caleb scoffed. Pathetic. My hand lifted before I even realized it, 5 fingers curling into a strike. James grabbed my wrist midair. Helen, not here. I didn't fight him. I held Caleb's stare instead. One day, you'll face what you've done. He smirked. I already won. Cameras flashed again. Light exploded across the walls. Journalists took advantage of every second. James whispered beside me. They're documenting. Good. Let them document the coward. Mark exhaled slowly. Helen, we'll appeal. Not today, but we will. I know. Hannah wiped her face, trying to stay upright. Why don't they believe me? Courts don't always see truth, I whispered. But people do. She shook her head. I can't do another hearing. You won't need to. Caleb motioned toward the exit. Come on, family. We have dinner reservations. Sylvia giggled. Perfect timing. Olivia chimed in. Maybe we should toast to winning. James muttered. Unbelievable. As they reached the door, a reporter called out, "Ms. Harper Grant, do you feel the ruling was fair?" Hannah froze. Another reporter stepped closer. "Did your husband's family mistreat you?" Cameras flashed like lightning. Hannah trembled. Her breath jagged. Her words stuck in her throat. James positioned himself between her and the cameras. "Give her space." Caleb smirked at the reporters. "She's emotional. Ignore her." More flashes erupted. My voice cut through all of it. "Don't you dare speak for her." Reporters turned their cameras on me. Caleb scoffed. "She's unstable." Hannah broke again. "Please stop." James wrapped an arm around her shoulders, guiding her toward the side aisle. "Let's step out." Reporters followed. Flashes, questions, shouts, phones recording everything. I stepped in front of Hannah like a shield. "No more questions." One reporter lowered her camera slowly. Her eyes softened. "We saw what happened today. People will talk." "Good. Let them talk. Let the world see what the court refused to see." As we exited the double doors, cold air swept in. Sharp, honest, real. Hannah collapsed against me. "Mom, what do I do now?" "You survive," I whispered. "And then you rise." James closed the courthouse door behind us. Snowflakes drifted in the breeze. Quiet at last. "We lost today," he murmured. "No," I replied. "They just think we did." He watched me carefully. "What's your next step?" Something the Grant family never expected. Hannah leaned into me, shivering from more than cold. I can't go back to them." "You won't." Camera flashes still flickered through the glass behind us. Journalists whispering, momentum building. Truth loosening the system's grip. This wasn't justice. Not yet. But justice was coming from another direction. A louder one. A public one. And the Grant family had nowhere to hide from that. Snow crunched beneath our shoes as we stepped away from the courthouse stairs. The air burned cold, but it still felt warmer than what we had just walked out of. James walked beside us, jaw tight. Hannah leaned into my arm, her eyes swollen from everything the courtroom stripped from her. Before I could guide her farther, a group of people rushed toward us, not reporters this time, but strangers. A woman in a thick coat raised her phone. "Are you Hannah? We saw the clips." Hannah froze. Another man stepped forward. "What they did to you in there, it wasn't right." A ripple of voices formed around us. "They ignored your medical records. That judge barely looked at anything. Grant family always gets their way in this city." James positioned himself at Hannah's other side, ready if anyone pushed too close. The first woman lowered her phone and met Hannah's eyes with genuine concern. "You're not alone. People are talking." I tightened my hand around Hannah's. "Let's get to the car." But the voices followed. "Stay strong. We're with you. You didn't deserve any of this." For the first time since the verdict, Hannah lifted her head, her lips parted, not in fear, but in disbelief. I leaned close. "You see, truth leaves a trail, even when courtrooms shut doors." James unlocked the car. "Let's move before the reporters catch up." We got Hannah inside. I slid in next, then James drove us out of the courthouse lot. As the building disappeared behind us, Hannah whispered, "Why do strangers care?" "Because they saw everything the judge pretended not to." She didn't answer, but her shoulders loosened, even if just a little. James dropped us at my apartment. "I'll check on you tonight." I nodded once. "Be careful. They won't like that you stood with us." His eyes hardened. "I'm not afraid of them." When he drove away, I took Hannah upstairs, helped her inside, and guided her to the couch. She sank into it quietly. "Mom, it's everywhere online." I stepped closer. "Show me." She handed me her phone. The video from the courtroom, Hannah begging Caleb not to push James into violence, the judge ignoring her, Caleb smirking, was all over the internet. Millions of views already. Comments flooded. This woman was abused. That judge is compromised. Grant family corruption needs to be investigated. Someone uploaded screenshots of the judge having dinner with Richard Grant last year. Someone else posted clips of Caleb partying with local officials. The truth was no longer contained. I looked at Hannah. See, people are not blind. She shook her head slowly. But they can't undo the ruling. No, I replied, but they can expose the hands that shaped it. Her breath trembled. Mom, am I ruining your life by dragging you into this? I knelt in front of her. You didn't drag me anywhere. I walked into this fight because I know who you are. She pressed her lips together, tears gathering again. Before she could speak, James knocked. I opened the door. He stepped in quietly, holding a folded newspaper. Front page, he murmured. He handed it to me. Bold black letters stretched across the top. Grant case sparks outrage. Citizens question judicial integrity. A photo of Hannah crying into James's sleeve filled half the page. Below it, smaller headlines. Former Judge Harold Grant's family under fire. Boise community demands review of court ruling. Officer Cole seen comforting victim. James glanced at Hannah. People are rallying. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Why does it feel unreal? Because you spent years being silenced, I told her. Now the world is amplifying what you lived through. Hannah leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I don't want fame. I just wanted peace. You'll have it, I replied. But first, the truth has to breathe. James checked his phone. There's more. A journalist reached out. Investigative team. They want to meet. Hannah stiffened. I can't talk on camera. They can blur your face, James explained. They only need details, patterns, names. Her voice cracked. I'm tired, James. I'm tired of telling this story. He lowered his head slightly. I know, but if you talk, the next woman doesn't have to go through what you did. She closed her eyes. A long breath escaped her. I placed a hand on her knee. You choose the pace. You choose who hears your voice. She opened her eyes again, clearer, firmer. If I agree, will it help other women trapped like me? Yes, James replied. She nodded slowly. Then I'll do it. I felt a quiet pride swell in my chest. Hannah wasn't breaking anymore. She was rising. James exhaled in relief. I'll set it up carefully. No early leaks. Before leaving, he paused near the door. One more thing. The Grant family is panicking. They didn't expect public pressure. Good, I answered without emotion. Let them panic. When he left, Hannah stared at the window. Snow drifted under the streetlight, soft but relentless. Mom, she whispered, am I strong enough for this? You already survived the hardest part. She lowered her gaze. What if they try to retaliate? They will, I replied. But this time, they'll be exposed at every step. Her breath steadied. I want my life back. You'll reclaim it, I said, piece by piece. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. We stand with you. Keep fighting. Another message came in, then another. Support poured in from strangers she had never met. Hannah pressed the phone to her chest, trembling. Why does kindness hurt more than cruelty? Because it reminds you you're human, I replied, and that you still deserve warmth. She leaned against me like she had when she was little. I don't know what happens next. I do, I whispered. She looked up, searching my face. What happens next? I brushed her hair gently behind her ear. We stop grieving, I said, and we start dismantling the Grant family. Morning light slipped through the blinds as I brewed coffee. The air was still, quiet, waiting. Hannah sat on the couch, her fingers tracing the taekwondo keychain James had given her. A small symbol, a small spark, but enough to remind her she wasn't broken. I placed a cup in front of her. Drink, you'll need strength today. She wrapped both hands around the mug. Are we meeting the journalist? In an hour. Her breath caught. I'm ready. I watched her straighten her back, not fully steady, but steady enough. James knocked softly. When I opened the door, he stepped inside, scanning the room. Cars waiting downstairs, no reporters around. They're camped outside Caleb's office. A hint of satisfaction flickered inside me. Good. We left the apartment together. Snow covered the sidewalks, but the city felt different today. Awake, watching. The journalist chose a small office in a quiet building. No cameras, only audio. Hannah sat across the table, her voice low but clear as she walked through each moment. Her miscarriages, the insults, the nights she hid in the bathroom to cry, the cold porch on Christmas Eve. I sat beside her without interrupting. The journalist listened closely. We'll publish this with your identity protected, but the Grant name will not be. Hannah lowered her head. As long as other women don't feel alone. We stepped outside after the interview. Snowflakes landed on Hannah's sweater. James walked ahead, scanning the street. We need to be cautious. The Grants won't sit still. They didn't. By evening, Richard Grant appeared on television, his voice calm, his tone rehearsed. My family has been unfairly targeted. The internet twists facts. We stand firm. But the public didn't believe him anymore. Comments flooded under the broadcast. You silenced your daughter-in-law. You manipulated the trial. Retired judge abusing influence again. The tide was turning. James arrived at my apartment just before sunset, his breath visible in the cold air. There's something you need to see. He handed me his phone. A new headline lit the screen. State Commission to review conduct of Judge Turner after public complaint surge. Another beneath it. Former Judge Richard Grant named in inquiry. Hannah covered her mouth. They're investigating? It's moving fast, James replied. People kept sending emails, letters, recordings. The system can ignore one woman. It can't ignore thousands. I looked at Hannah. Her eyes glistened, not with fear, but disbelief. Mom, it's happening. Justice isn't loud, I murmured. It just arrives when the noise gets too heavy to ignore. Night fell. Snow thickened. Then the knock came. Caleb stood in the hallway, coat unzipped, hair messy, eyes bloodshot. The arrogance from the courthouse was gone. Hannah stiffened. He stepped forward. Can we talk? His voice trembled. James blocked the doorway instantly. State your purpose. Caleb glanced at the floor. Everything's falling apart. Reporters at my office, clients leaving. My firm wants to suspend me. That's not our concern, I replied calmly. He raised his head, desperate. I need Hannah to help clear my name. Hannah exhaled sharply. You want me to lie for you? I need you to tell people you exaggerated, that your mom twisted things. Her hand curled into a fist. You left me outside in the cold. He flinched. I lost control, but I'm paying for it. Please, just tell them. No. His eyes widened. Hannah. No, she repeated, her voice firmer. For years, I begged for kindness. You gave me humiliation. You don't get to ask anything from me now. He stepped toward her, but I moved between them. You walked her to the edge, I said. You pushed her every step. Now you're falling, and you want her to pull you up. That era is over. He opened his mouth, but no words formed. James folded his arms. Leave before I call dispatch. You're under enough scrutiny already. Caleb hesitated, his breath shaking. This will ruin me. Hannah lifted her chin. You ruined yourself. He backed away. When the elevator closed, Hannah leaned against the wall, eyes shut. I never thought he'd break. Abusers always do, I whispered, when their voices stop echoing. The next morning brought another headline. Caleb Grant, suspended pending professional misconduct investigation. By noon, another. Richard Grant resigns from legal advisory board amid public outcry. Phone calls came from neighbors, former students, old colleagues. Support, concern, anger on our behalf. But the one that mattered most came from Dr. Laura. She met us at her office, her tone calm as always. Hannah's progress is evident. She is reclaiming herself. Hannah took a breath. For the first time, I feel safe. You're learning the difference between surviving and living, Dr. Laura replied. Both require strength, but living leaves room for hope. We left the office. Snow melted on the sidewalks, turning to soft slush underfoot. Hannah paused near a lamppost, glowing gently in the gray afternoon. "Mom," she murmured, "is this the part where everything becomes normal?" "No," I answered. "This is the part where everything becomes yours." Her eyes warmed. "I want that." I wrapped her in my arms. "Then claim it." Evening came quietly. We sat by the window of our apartment, watching city lights flicker on. People walked bundled in coats, carrying groceries, greeting one another. Ordinary life. Peaceful life. Hannah rested her head on my shoulder. "Mom, thank you. Mom, thank ye." "For what?" "For not turning cold." I touched her hand. "Cold is what they wanted us to be. Warm is what got us here." She smiled softly. "What happens to the Grants now?" "They face what they built," I replied. "Their walls cracked, their names exposed, their power questioned." "And us?" "We move forward." She closed her eyes, breathing evenly. "I want tomorrow." "You'll have it." The snow outside thickened again, but for the first time in months, it didn't feel heavy. It felt clean, quiet, new. Hannah turned toward the window. "Mom." "Yes?" "Do you think justice actually came?" I watched the lamp glow on her face, the soft, steady light returning. "Not the courtroom kind," I whispered. "The human kind. The kind no one can buy." She nodded slowly. "That's enough for me." And for the first time since that frozen Christmas Eve, I felt the cold loosen its grip. Warmth settled around us, small, steady, undeniably ours. The return of justice wasn't loud. It was simply real. Thank you for staying with me through this story, if any part of it reminded you of something you've lived through. I hope you know this. No one deserves to face cruelty in silence, and no mother should ever be pushed aside when she's fighting for her child. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, you can subscribe to Grandma Life Stories. It helps this small corner of the internet stay warm for those who need it. Feel free to leave a comment and share where you're watching from. I always read them, and they remind me how far a single voice can travel. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story.